everything that you want in your life is on the other side of conviction. Every single decision that you need to make in this next season will be determined by the depth of your conviction. I knew I wasn't successful. I wasn't surrounded by people who were necessarily successful, but I knew that there were people out there who had it figured out, and I didn't quite yet. You see, at the end of this conversation today, I want to be able to empower you with a skill set that you'll be able to apply when maybe motivation isn't where you're at. Because what I'm about to share with you about conviction is going to change your life. Let's go. All right, I only have an hour to change your life, so it is going to go by really quick. First of all, this is such an incredible room. Thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor. I don't get to speak at a lot of all women's events. The last women's event that I went to at the end of the weekend, we had this beautiful lunch. We were looking out at the ocean, very similar to this. And a woman turned to me. She grabbed my hand and she said, "Gabrielle, I have something to confess to you. I have hated you all weekend." I was like, "What?" I said, "What did I do? What did I say? Like, is it something I did? Do I smell weird?" And she's like, "No, I hated you because you look exactly like the girl who used to bully me in middle school." And I looked at her and I squeezed her hand and I said, "Kristen, it's okay. You look exactly like the girl who used to bully me in middle school." So we are here creating community, growing from our middle school traumas, and proving to the world that women truly are better together when we're here in this room. So I have a question for you. How many of you are in a season of transition? Pretty much everybody in the room trying to figure out what's next, trying to get clarity, trying to get confidence. Every single one of us, whether we're trying to decide what we should do next in our life, in our career, our relationships, maybe looking at what the next season looks like, we're all asking the same question: what's next for me? And as I was preparing for today, I was thinking about what is one message that I could share with you that you guys could put in your pocket and you could take with you when you're finding frustration with your team or your kids, when you're trying to figure out how do I make sure that I move into this next scene of my life with confidence and clarity. And it really came down to one word, and that's conviction. You see, everything that you want in your life is on the other side of conviction. Every single decision that you need to make in this next season will be determined by the depth of your conviction. You see, at the end of this conversation today, I want to be able to empower you with a skill set that you'll be able to apply when maybe motivation isn't where you're at. Maybe you're a little tired. Maybe you're like, do I have to do this thing one more time? Because what I'm about to share with you about conviction is going to change your life. It's going to be something that at first sounds so simple and maybe a little stupid, but it's something that you're going to be able to integrate into every single part of your life and your business. One of my favorite moments is when people will text me after presentations like this and they're like, "Gab, I took what you talked about conviction and I told it to my kids and now they're not getting bullied at school." Or "I took what you talked about conviction and I told it to my team and our sales numbers went up." Or "That conversation that we had about conviction, it totally changed my perspective of myself and what's next for me." I want to unlock in you something that makes you truly unstoppable. Not in a surface level way, but something that comes from the inside. So in order to help you understand this, I have to take you back about 2 decades. So when people hear that I wrote my first book at 17, they sound pretty impressed. But those are usually the people who don't spend a lot of time in therapy. So for those of us who've spent enough time reflecting on our lives and why we do what we do, is we know oftentimes the moments of our biggest achievements, our highest highs, are actually when we're having our lowest lows. What people didn't know when they were congratulating me when I was writing my first book at 17 is I was running away from an addicted-based household. You see, something really interesting happens when there's an addiction in the household. One of two things. You either replicate or you rebel. You replicate by your activities, oftentimes by imbibing the same substances. You replicate by the perspective, or you rebel. You say, "My dad's an alcoholic, I'm never going to drink or drink like that." You say, "My mom's a narcissist, I'm never going to lean into that tendency." You say, "My parents were horrible with money, I'm going to be a really good saver." What did I do? I replicated. Not in the form of alcohol. In fact, I didn't drink my first drop of alcohol until I was 21, which is probably why I was writing a book at 17. No one was inviting me to parties, and I was a little bit of a snitch, so not exactly the most popular person to have come to your party. But what I found was I did become addicted to something, and that was achievement. When you have addiction in your household, and whether that's with a substance or not, because a substance doesn't need to be there for addiction to be in place, but I found one thing. I said, what can I control? I couldn't control how my parents acted. I couldn't control their relationship. I couldn't control the bankruptcy that they went through or that we lost our house. I couldn't control that they spent all the college fund on a backyard that we then lost the next year. I couldn't control anything, but I could control me. And so that created a tendency that actually turned into something that became a little bit of a superpower. Does anyone know what that feels like when the stuff that you went through, that really, really hard thing, actually becomes something you're actually grateful for? Mm-hmm. We call it weaponizing gratitude in our community, of how do you take something that was really shitty and it wasn't fair and it wasn't something that should have happened to you, and you turn it into something that blesses other people. Because when something really crappy happens to you, you have one of two responses. You can say, why me? And accept that victim card and say, this is who I am. Or you can say, who is this for? Because it's not for me, it's for somebody else. And so when I was 17 and going through this season of trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life and how the heck I was going to get out of that house, I came up with a concept called stalking success. I knew I wasn't successful. I wasn't surrounded by people who were necessarily successful, but I knew that there were people out there who had it figured out and I didn't quite yet. So I started studying. I studied over 200 different stories and biographies of top leaders and people who were experts and people who were influential in their own right. And when I consider success, I wasn't thinking money and I wasn't thinking fame. What I was thinking was people who had intentional impact. That's how I define success. And so as I started studying it, I was thinking, what do these people have that I don't have? What have they figured out? And I actually found it wasn't what I thought. You see, the first thing I thought was, it's got to be motivation. The people who are at the top of the chain, they've got to have figured it out. They have to have more motivation than I do, right? That's what everyone says, is they say, if you need something, you need to become more motivated. And so I started studying and looking at what does motivation actually mean? I was kind of one of those weirdos where I was exposed to personal development at a pretty early age. Is anyone else like that? Like my mom would drag me to Get Motivated seminars. Does anyone remember those? With Tamara Lowe and Peter Lowe. My mom would take me to Tony Robbins events. I mean, anything she could do to expose me to a growth mindset, which I'm so incredibly thankful for. And so I came across this guy. Does anyone know who this is? Jim Rohn. Yes, I came across Jim Rohn. And I remember Success Magazine used to put in the back of their magazines these little tiny CDs. It used to be cassettes, and they moved them to CDs. And they would pull different clips from Earl Nightingale and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. And I would listen to that on repeat over and over and over again every single day on my drive to school. It was like, they know something that I don't. And I remember hearing Jim Rohn, who was like the it guy, like the ultimate guy that I was like, I want to be Jim. I remember him saying this. He said, I don't know why some people are more motivated. I don't know. Some people are more motivated than others. We don't know. Some of them get it. Some of them don't. I don't know. That wasn't enough for me. I was like, it's not, if this guy, the top motivator in the world back in the day, doesn't know, how the heck am I supposed to know? It wasn't motivation that the top achievers had that I didn't have. So I thought, it's got to be passion. That's what everyone talks about. Everyone's like, you need to find your passion, right? We hear advice from people who are doing graduation speeches, and you get these little Christmas cards or graduation cards that say congratulations. They say things like, follow your passion. Or I love when people are like, oh, I don't have a paycheck. I have a passion. Or some people even say, I heard one founder say, it made me laugh. He said, I don't have an alarm clock. My passion wakes me up. And I was like, must be nice. Then I looked up the dictionary definition of passion. The dictionary definition of passion is this: a barely controllable emotion, which kind of ruins a little bit of the vibe when you're giving people advice, like follow your barely controllable emotion. Or if that founder were to say, you know, it's not my alarm clock, it's my barely controllable emotion that wakes me up. Where's Dr. Betty? We need to get her. Yeah, there we go. She's got to handle that barely controllable emotion waking them up in the middle of the night. When I found out that passion was so fleeting and we were using this, we had idolized passion. I did. I was like, I'm just not passionate enough. That's why I didn't figure out my career early on enough, or I wasn't passionate enough. That's why that business idea failed, or I wasn't passionate enough. I've written 7 books, but do you know how many books I've started? Over 20. I finished 7, but I started over 20. I think in book titles, it's actually really annoying. I'm like, this could be a great book and this could be a great book. So if you want a book title, come to me. I'll manifest it for you. I'm very good at this. But when I realized I was putting so much on passion, and then it turned on me and realized it was a barely controlled emotion, I was like, I can't follow passion. Passion isn't really the problem. So then I thought, it's got to be focus, right? It's got to be focus. One of my favorite books growing up was The Power of Focus by Jack Canfield. I had it in my backpack in 10th grade. Also, you guys are like, this is making a lot of sense. Like, you're like, we get it. You were a junkie and single for a very long time. I get it. My focus, my obsession with focus, I was like, that's it. They've got to figure out, I just have to figure out focus. But the truth is, really, focus is the ability to get something done. It doesn't matter whether it's right or it's wrong. Many of us have heard Stephen Covey, who popularized the concept of being able to go up a ladder with your entire life and realize it's against the wrong wall. Each of us have had seasons of incredible focus, and that wasn't what we should have been focusing on. We're very productive. Let's be really honest. Can we just brag about ourselves as women? We get shit done, okay? We get it done. I love a checklist so much. I put stuff on the checklist that I've already done just because it feels so good to scratch it off. I'm like, you did it again, Gabrielle? You just killing the game. That's what we do. We love getting stuff done, but is it the right stuff? That's what conviction answers for us. When I looked at all of these elements all together, I realized it wasn't any of these things. It wasn't passion. It wasn't motivation. It wasn't focus. It was actually conviction. Now, to understand where my conviction came from, I have to take you back about 8 years to a conference room in Boise, Idaho. Now, in the expert space, we call this the origin story. Is anyone familiar with this? It's like where you discover what you're about to share. But he's nodding with me. This is not where I thought my origin story was going to happen. I was like, it's got to be somewhere cool and tropical like this. It's got to be cool and sexy, maybe on a stage. I wasn't thinking fluorescent lighting. Okay, that wasn't like my coming of age moment that I was imagining in my life. But everything changed for me. So what you can see here, we're in Boise, Idaho. This is my husband here on the right, adorable. His name is Brian. And at the time, I was really being brought in around the world to come in and speak on the next generation. I was like the millennial whisperer. You know, like Cesar Millan for Dogs, the dog whisperer. I was like the millennial whisperer. So when people were having a hard time retaining the next generation or speaking to the next generation or trying to figure out how to keep them around longer, they'd hire me, bring me in. I'd talk to them and be like, stop being a little shit. And then I would send them on their way. So what I did was working with company after company is I would find ways to be able to create a legacy in that organization. So here we're actually certifying the leaders at this grocery chain on our systemology, which was called generational leadership theory. And so that's really kind of what I became known for, is how your age influences how you make decisions. And so we're here, and my husband came to me right before this event, and he said, hey, I really think we should start talking about purpose at work. And I was like, honey, you are so smart. You are so cute. You are so wrong. Like, there's just no way that people are going to pay for purpose at work. Do I have any like ROI girlies out there who are like, I absolutely love numbers? Yeah, that's me. Like a good Friday night is give me a spreadsheet and some Chardonnay, and I'm like, good. I'm so happy. I was like, Brian, there's no way people are going to pay for purpose. Like, they're paying us so much money, and I'm just going to come in and be like, you want your people to stay longer? Help them find their purpose. Thanks. Bye. And just like leave? I was like, absolutely not. We have to give them something tangible. We have to give them something real. Like, we have to do something. He's like, no, I think that this is what we should do. It's like, okay. So he saw his moment. It was 2 days of 4 hours training each. I'm not like one of those intermittent fasters. I don't know how many of you guys are, but like I get something called hangry. Okay. And so it's 4 hours of me talking. And so I was like, hey, I need a break. I need like a bar or something. Like I need a smoothie. Girl needs her protein. I was like, hey, Brian, can you take over? And I leave the room. Then something crazy happened. This disobedient husband of mine gets up there and he starts speaking about purpose. I come back in about 45 minutes and everybody in the room is crying. And I'm like, what? You broke my executives. What did you do? I leave you for like 30 minutes. And he's like, yeah, but watch what happened. You see, here's what he did. So when he left, he asked a question that I'm going to ask many of you here in a few minutes. And he said, what moment most shaped your perspective? He asked these leaders in the room, and these were all high-level, executive-level leaders at this company. They'd all worked together for at least 5 years. This was a cool company, by the way. They like went kayaking and did like, bar crawls and stuff together. So like they had great culture, right, as we say. But they didn't really know each other. And so in this photo, I see Brian kind of breaking down what we call someone's origin story. So he asked, hey, does anyone feel comfortable sharing the most impactful moment of your life? And there was a young guy there named Pete. And so Pete said, I'll go. And here's what Pete said that changed everything for us. Pete said, when I was coming home from school, I was in college and going to my dorm room, and I walked into my dorm room, opened it up, and I found my roommate there with a gun in his mouth, getting ready to take his own life. He said, I ran over and I took the firearm out of his mouth, and I ended up helping him get a job. I helped him find meaning and purpose. I helped him get a job next to me, actually. So you see, Pete was a bagger at the grocery chain that he was working at. And Pete said, with tears in his eyes, he said, I never realized that me helping my roommate save his life, get a job, find meaning, would influence why I do HR today. He said, I didn't realize till right now, the reason I'm so passionate about helping people get great jobs and keep them is because I know maybe one day that job could save somebody's life. Guys, we were ugly crying. Like all of us were like snotting. And we're like, oh, I love you, man. And like, it got so emotional. And at that moment, we realized we had something. So I turned to my husband and I was like, you were right. Absolutely right. Don't we love that when that happens to our partner? We're like, you're right. And we realized that purpose indeed does have an ROI. From there, we went on to teach our methodology. That's us at Joint Base Lackland, teaching the 37th Training Wing. They brought us in because they said, we need to create conviction in the next generation of servicemen and women. So we've had the opportunity to work with the Air Force, with the Navy, a number of incredible companies. And it was at this event, when I was working with the Air Force, that I realized how important it was to understand this right here. Is that purpose individualizes the mission. You see, I've been working with a lot of incredible companies like Goodwill, and I've spoken for the CIA and Department of Education and nonprofits and like faith-based organizations. And what we found is every company who brought us in kept saying, our mission is big enough, they'll want to come work for us. No longer can you expect your mission to be big enough to draw people in to work with us. They thought it was the big end mission. They said, come join us, but they don't realize that we need to go join them. Purpose individualizes the mission. When your people know that they can live out your purpose while working with you and for you, everything changes. You see, the lack of purpose has impacted the US economy in such an incredible way. There's really interesting studies that are now coming out around this. A qualitative study actually found the cost of not knowing your purpose cost the US economy about $1 trillion. Now that includes everything from anxiety, depression, absenteeism, presenteeism, because the people who are sitting there butts in seats doesn't necessarily mean that they're producing, and they're working from home, it's even harder. The cost is huge. I love the study by McKinsey. They actually have done one of the largest purpose at work studies. I'm like, thank you so much, guys, for proving my husband's point. That if you find purpose at work, you're more likely to stay, you're more likely to recruit, and you're more likely to have more enjoyable work experiences at that company. Guys, I just want to encourage you, for those, who here is an employer? Who here has employees on your team that yes, pretty much everybody in the room, right? I just want to encourage you. We have a responsibility to help our people find their purpose. No longer is it enough for them to come to work for us and then we give them a paycheck and then, help them get benefits and they're on their way. We're no longer exchanging money for paychecks. It's now time to start exchanging time for purpose. We have a huge opportunity to connect the people on our team, whether they're with us for 2 weeks, 2 years, or 20, to be able to find their purpose at work. We're on a mission at the Purpose Company, as it shared in the videos. We want to help 1 billion people find their purpose. But we know we can't do that alone. So we create programs, and we have onboarding programs and mentoring programs. We have certifications. We actually certify people as purpose coaches so that they can train their team on how to find their purpose, because we know that the crisis is huge. Just yesterday, I was reading a study by the Harvard Business Review that actually said 37% of young adults today struggle with anxiety and depression. 1 out of 3 people who are coming into work with us or for us, or maybe they're your kids or nieces or nephews, people who say, I don't know what's next for me. I don't even know if there's a point anymore. We heard a story from one of our coaches, Michelle. She lives in Florida. She told us this just about a month ago. She joined our coaching program. She got certified by us, and she said, man, I wish that I would have seen this a month ago. She said, you see, a month ago, my niece was really struggling. We knew that she was having suicidal ideation. We knew that she was having a really hard time. But I went to her mom and I said, hey, I think she really needs to find her purpose. I think I've got a good idea. She had found out about our purpose factor assessment. She said, I think I've got a good idea. And the mom said, that's really nice, Michelle. We don't want to intervene with what the doctors and the professionals are doing. Let's just not do it. A month later, that girl was in the hospital recovering from trying to take her own life. And I tell you this story because what Michelle said next continues to break my heart day in, day out. It's why we do what we do. She said, I asked my niece, why did you do it? And her niece said, early 20s, she said, I don't know my purpose, and I don't know if I ever will. So many people in our lives on the front, we think we have it together. We think we've got motivation. We think we're successful. We think we've got focus. But the truth is, every single one of us is struggling with what is next for us. We've taken the system and we work with companies around the world, helping them truly engage their people, their team, and more importantly, themselves as leaders. We get really cool notes from people saying that this experience changed my life. It saved my family. It saved my marriage. I love when people text me and they're like, hey, this would have been so great if I had my husband take this before we get married. Or sometimes they're like, oh, this is why I got divorced. Thank you for explaining that to me too. You see, what we found was it wasn't purpose eventually. A lot of times we were talking to companies and they kept saying, we'll get to it. Or I talk a lot to leaders and they're like, I'll find my purpose when I retire, when things slow down, when I can make sense of it, when I can finally hire somebody to take over this part of my business. My friends, it is not purpose eventually. It is purpose first. It's purpose first before deciding what's next. It's purpose first before you write that book. It's purpose first before you hire that person. It has to start with purpose first. Helping people find their purpose really becomes the impetus for decision making. And that's one of the gifts that I want to share with you guys today is how to make great decisions about what's next using your purpose. We get cool notes from people saying, I got my TED Talk, or I wrote my book, or Wendy said, yeah, I got my TED Talk. And Alfredo, who's a rabbi in Brooklyn from Brazil. He's like the most interesting person. He just closed a major consulting deal. So many people will get clarity from the conviction components that I'm going to be talking about. This is one of my favorite things to teach. I teach this pretty much everywhere I go. I've taught it around the world, and it's called the water cycle principle. So I'm sure most of you guys might remember the water cycle from biology class from like maybe 7th grade or 8th grade. We're all trying to forget. But the water cycle principle is quite simple in that the water cycle essentially says all of the water that's existed on the planet has always been here. There's not more today than there was thousands or millions or whatever years ago. It's all been contained. It's just moving between different states. Very similar to how it moves inside of our organizations. So the water cycle principle represents how value moves between elements of our organization. So sometimes companies will bring me in and they'll say, okay, we're really having a hard time with our employees. They're not sticking around. They're not showing up. They're not doing the job that we hired them to do. What can we do about them? All I have to do is look upstream. You see, we cannot give what we are not given. We can't expect our employees to show up and stay late and do more if the leaders aren't given what they need. Sometimes people are like, well, the managers they're not doing their job. They're stressed. They're overworked. Don't we know mid-level managers are one of the most stressed groups inside of corporate America today? When I work with companies, it's really funny. They'll be like, managers are really like they're like the stepchild of corporate. I'm like, were you going to say the redheaded stepchild? I was like, I represent a redheaded stepchild generation. Okay, I am a redheaded stepchild, and it's fine. We're totally okay with it's okay to use the term, guys. It's safe. But the leaders aren't getting what they want. So that's usually because the owners, the executives aren't getting what they want. Or sometimes if customers, you have low customer retention, it means that the employees aren't getting what they want. Look upstream to whatever challenge you're facing in your business, because it means the people who are leading them aren't getting what they need. So how do we get what they need? It really does start with conviction. Conviction is the unreasonable certainty that what I'm doing is right and worth it. It is the unreasonable certainty that what I am doing is right and worth it. I'm going to break down that definition and actually put some wheels to it. Is this okay? Are we having fun so far? Are we learning a lot? Okay, great. Because I want you to take something with you to your team, to your family, to your partner that's truly going to make a big difference. Because when you have conviction, everything else becomes easier. It just does. Clarity creates confidence, and confidence closes. It's one of my favorite statements whenever we're working with sales teams, because we work with a lot of sales teams and realtors and people who are client facing. And when I explain to them, the reason that you're not closing is that you don't have confidence. And the reason you don't have confidence is because you don't have clarity. But the reason that they don't have clarity, they don't have conviction. And that's what I'm going to teach you on how to do that today. Each of us have what we call a conviction moment. It is a convergence of when multiple things are happening at the same time. That conviction moment happens when two things come into alignment: pain and clarity. Pain and clarity. I'm going to talk to you about how do you create a conviction moment on demand, so that way you can tap into your conviction when sometimes, let's be honest, we just don't feel like it. We're like, I've done enough. I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing better than I was last year. I'm doing better than that person. I'm going to teach you how to create that conviction moment, because conviction is so powerful, because it is the moment that moves everything from I could to I must. There's a lot of coulds out there. Who here feels a little overwhelmed with everything you could do? Let's be honest. I have two hands up, literally right now. It's like, we have so many things we could do. You could go here, you could go there, you could join, this group, you could start this podcast, you could do a blog, you could stop doing a blog. There's so many coulds out there. There are so many decisions that we're having to make every single day. We're overwhelmed with options. It's not the lack of options. We're overwhelmed with the options that we already have. Some of you might not be in the could camp. Maybe you're in the should camp. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I shouldn't have stayed longer. Maybe I shouldn't have said that to him. Maybe I should have said that to her. We are in this should crisis. And should comes from shame. And I just want to tell you guys, stop shoulding all over yourself. Just stop it. Just let it go. Anytime someone says I should, I just close their mouth. I go, shh, shh, shh. Like, but I should, shh, 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 shh. No shoulding. We're not shoulders here. We're not. It's what must I do. Must comes from inside, should comes from outside. Should comes from shame and expectations and what everybody wants from you. I must comes from a decision from the inside. That is what we must compel our lives by. So I'm going to break down the unreasonable certainty component of how to get conviction. So the first component of conviction is unreasonable certainty. Why does it have to be unreasonable? Someone once asked me, why does it have to be unreasonable? Because people with conviction look unreasonable to the reasonable, and they look certain in the face of uncertainty. Guys, I want to encourage you that certainty does not come from the outside. If you think certainty comes from your partner, you're wrong. If you think it comes from the economy, you're wrong. If you think it comes from your team or your past performances or your anything other than from inside, you are incorrect, because conviction and certainty has to come from the inside out. We create the certainty in our lives. We have to be unreasonably certain that we're going to show up the way that we know that we should and look certain in the face of uncertainty. So you can't, so the slides got a little wonky, but it's totally fine. We're on this journey together. So on the left is Elon Musk. You can't tell, but that's him. This is him on Ozempic, okay? So He's on a journey with us. Okay. So when I was thinking about who has conviction, I was thinking about two people instantly. One person I don't know, which is Elon Musk, but there's one person that I know very well, and that's Marilyn. See, Marilyn is my mom. So we're going to play a little game of who said that. Was it Elon Musk, the multi-cajillion billionaire who sleeps under his desk and continues to invest billions of dollars? I think he took a personal loan of $12.5 billion to buy Twitter. I mean, this man is like dripping with conviction. Or is it my mom, Marilyn? Now, you need to know a few things to play. Can we play a game? Is that okay? Okay. So a few things you need to know about Marilyn. Yes, I call my mom by her first name. Everyone freaks out when it happens, but here's why I do it. It's not disrespectful. I think she kind of likes it. My mom and I went to college at the same time. So when my family was falling apart and we lost the house and they were going through bankruptcy and all of these horrible things were happening, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And my mom said, you know what, that's a good idea. I should go to college too. So have you guys seen that Melissa McCarthy movie where she goes to college with her daughter? Yeah, I think it was pretty much based off of my life. So my mom and I go to college together. We live in the same house. We have parties. I'm not kidding. That was truly my life with Marilyn. And this is a picture of Marilyn and I. I just moved her from Northern California to where I live in Dallas. And I've got a sign here and it says, Texas loves Marilyn. Now, what you don't see is on the other side of that sign, and it says she's single. Okay, because I am trying to marry this woman off. She's 79 years old. She looks absolutely amazing. She has more energy than anybody combined. Like an aerobics instructor would get tired hanging out with my mom. And just 2 nights ago, I was FaceTiming her. I was like, hey, how's it going? How is your day? And she's like, oh, it's okay. I was on the news this morning. I was like, why were you on the news this morning? She's recruiting people for city council. No one asked her to. She just was like, she's lived there for a year. And she's like, I think we need some better representation. So she met someone at a coffee shop. Anyway, this woman is like dripping with conviction. Okay. Like she's got enough for the rest of us. So that's all you need to know about Marilyn and skinny Elon. So we're going to keep jumping in and let's see who said that. Okay. Who said it? Quitting is not in my nature. I'm not interested in optimism or pessimism. We're going to get it done. Who said it, Elon or Marilyn? Marilyn. It was actually Elon. Yes. Yeah. But I think Marilyn would absolutely say that. Okay. How about this? It's okay to have your eggs in one basket as long as you control what happens to that basket. She's like option 3. Elon said, it's okay if you put all your eggs in a basket as long as you have certainty and you own the basket that you're putting in. Who here has put all your eggs in one basket and then that basket sucked? Right? In a business and an opportunity, maybe in a relationship, we do that. We tend to put all of our eggs in that basket. All right, how about my work is like eating glass and staring into the abyss? Yeah, that's Elon. I'm glad it's not my mom because I don't have kids, but I can imagine raising teenage girls is probably like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Okay, how about this one? If you see something, say something. That was Marilyn, yeah, which I'm really mad at the TSA because every time I hear that, I'm like, I should be getting royalties on this. Because I was raised by my mom saying, every single time you see something, Gabrielle, there's a reason that you see it and other people don't. There's a phrase that we use a lot of time at the Purpose Company where we say, your story is your authority. I think a lot of times people are waiting for permission to actually do something, but there's a reason you see something and your friends don't see it, your team members don't see it, your partner doesn't see it, and you're walking around saying someone should do something. That someone is you. And so it's through that conviction was born and made in me. Now here's a picture of me. Adorable. I'm hiking in Maui, I believe, and I was at a conference kind of similar to this, and I was on my trying to eat, pray, love my way through trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. Can anyone relate? I'm like, I need to just get out of where I'm at and find something new. That's actually where I discovered the importance of changing your physical location to change your mental location. That's when I realized the importance of groups like this and events like this, because I knew I couldn't solve the same problem with the same inputs. I needed some new information. And so I was hiking up this mountain and having these kind of epiphanies, because at the time from the outside, everyone was like, Gab, you're killing it. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. I had my dream apartment. I had my dream job. I was like, I made it. You know, people on social media are like, oh, we're so proud. Like you did all these great things. But back to that component of our highest achievements are oftentimes when we're having the biggest regrets, the hardest moments in our life. The really, is this what I should be doing? And it's really hard because when you become addicted to achievement at an early age, your coping mechanism becomes rewarded. The thing that you did to push through, to make it happen, to just survive is now rewarded economically, relationally, by society. People are like, you're doing great. And you're like, I'm dying inside. That's where I was. It's like, I couldn't do this anymore. On the outside, it looked like I had certainty, but the truth is I was staying so busy. Like, I loved how Kelly talked about that. I had so many things I thought I needed to do. I mean, guys, I was getting my pilot's license. I was running Tough Mudders. Like, I was like anything that you could do. I was like, I'm in it. Let's go. I'm a very competitive person. Do I have any Enneagram 3s in the room? Yeah. Okay. A number of us. Yeah. We're like, yes, absolutely. I'm so competitive that I had to like go and confess to my husband. We've been together. We've been married for 10 years, and 7 years in, I was like, I have to confess this to you. We have been in a competition since the day we met. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, and you're not winning. Like, it's not great. And he's like, I don't understand. I love you. I want the best for you. Of course I want you to win. And I said, I love you. I want the best for you. I also want me to win. So we're a little competitive. He just doesn't know it yet. And I just continue to push myself and drive myself and try to come up with the next thing that I thought, maybe if I have more hobbies, then I'm going to find more fulfillment and conviction. Maybe if I try something new. I mean, I had podcasts and blogs, and like, you pick it. I like started a coffee cart company. Like, I don't even know. I was just throwing stuff up against the wall. I was like a kid lost at Costco. I was like, are you my purpose? Are you my purpose? Like, I was so frustrated. I was so overwhelmed. From the outside, everyone's like, you're killing it. But from the inside, I was struggling with eating disorders. I was frustrated with anyone and everyone. I was so lonely. I was so frustrated, and I was so scared that I wasn't going to actually do it. I thought I had certainty, but my certainty was coming from the outside. It was coming from my job and my relationships. Certainty needed to come from the inside. I love this quote by Tom Bilyeu, founder of Quest Nutrition and host of Impact Theory. And he says, when faced with a tough decision, imagine 2 red buttons in front of you. You're going to smash one of them and not even graze the other. Once the decision is made, the only way forward is to commit fully. I have a feeling many of us in the room have had the 2 buttons in front of us for a really long time. We don't want to commit fully. We don't want to smash it. We're like, but what if I just keep this cute little button over here? Like, he's so cute. Like, that's an option later. I could go back to this if I wanted. It's maybe something that I want to have as an alternative option. Or sometimes we like to say pivot. Have you noticed how a lot of us, when we're going through like a midlife crisis, we're like, I'm pivoting. It's like we're crashing and burning. Okay, let's just be honest. We're dumpster fires. We're not pivoting. There are 2 options in front of you. And sometimes we think there are all these different options, but really it can be boiled down to kind of 2. One is fully aligned with your purpose, and the other is everything else. When we have so many options, we often choose none of them. But when we create binary choices, we tend to take action fully. I love this quote by Gary Keller. The One Thing is my most gifted book. If you hang out with me long enough, I'm just going to give it to you. I'm like Santa Claus. I'm like, you just need this. In his book, The One Thing, if you haven't read it yet, I'll give you the Cliff's Notes. I'm going to Cliff's Notes, not like hiking actual cliffs, so I'm just going to give it to you. He calls it the functioning question, which is, what is the one thing that which by doing makes everything else easier or unnecessary? So what is that for you? What is it? What's the one thing that you know that you need to do? Not the first thing. Let's make that very clear. What is the one thing that which by doing makes everything else easier or unnecessary? What's the domino 1? A lot of times when we don't know what to do, we pick the easiest thing first instead of the most important. You probably already know what it is, do you? We oftentimes know, we already know. We know what we're supposed to be doing, but we're not doing it. It's like, we know we have to do the hard thing. So we're like, I'm just going to work on this thing over here because it's a little bit easier. I'm just going to update my LinkedIn profile. I'm just going to work with my branding team. I'm just going to go do brainstorming activities over here. We're dancing around the one thing that we know we must do. What is that one thing for you? Can you write it down? Can you put it in your notes so that way when you're reflecting on this weekend, you remember that it really was just one decision? Sometimes we overcomplicate it. You ever notice that? I know I do. I make it complicated. I make stories in my head. I say it's so much harder. It's going to take so much more discipline. It's going to be just so much more focused. The reality is it's really just saying yes. Doubt isn't disbelief. Doubt, I would actually tell you, is indecision. Doubt isn't disbelief. Doubt is actually indecision. It is the wavering between too many decisions that's actually keeping us stuck. Because we're saying all the things I could do instead of saying, what is it that I must do? The average person makes about 35,000 decisions per day. No wonder we're exhausted, guys. And this isn't even women, and this isn't even business owners who are women, okay? So like time this by 10x. There's a lot. There's a lot of decisions that we're making, and we're constantly thinking, is it right? Is it right? Is it right? How many of you lay in bed at night and think, did I make the right decision? Did I say the right thing when I let that person go? Was I really clear when I was giving that person feedback? No, just me? I've noticed that there are two types of people in the world. There are the overthinkers and there are the overactors. There are the overthinkers who are like, it has to be perfect. It has to be great. It has to be clear and clean and pretty. And there has to be like a pre-planning meeting to pre-plan the meeting. And then we'll do a meeting to plan the meeting. Okay. Those are the overthinkers. Do I have any overthinkers in the room? Yes. Okay. Then there are the overactors. The overactor is like, oh, were you done with your sentence? I already finished it. They execute and they move. Do I have any overactors? Okay. What I found is overthinkers and overactors tend to marry each other. You tend to be one in that relationship. You tend to be one in that relationship. So there's really fascinating brain science around conviction. They've actually studied people with high levels of belief, either belief in themselves or belief in spirituality, and their brains actually scan differently. Their brains look different because they have higher senses of belief. And the part of their brain that actually lights up has everything to do with self-confidence. They found people with conviction feel that they have more agency in their life, more authority, and more control over their own happiness. So what keeps us from making decisions? It's really only one thing. It's fear over conviction. Every single time we have a decision that we need to make, there are two things that are happening. There's either fear that's going to rule, or there's conviction that's going to take over. You see, say you're doing a sales call and you're killing the sales call and you're like, this is absolutely amazing. And then in the last 10 minutes, your voice cracks. You wonder, are they going to pay that? You think, oh, they're probably already looking at my competitors, and fear loses. Now, maybe you do another sales call and you realize that, you know what? I am the best person for this opportunity. I am the best representation of this offer that I'm providing. If they don't hire me, they're going to hire someone who's worse than me. And that's not fair. You have to become an advocate for your client. When that happens, when you let fear lose, you then decide that conviction is going to win. It's just a teeter-totter of moving back and forth between, is it fear or is it conviction that's making the decision for what's next? As Kelly mentioned, we love John. He's one of our mentors. And we were having lunch with him one day, and he's eating this beautiful chocolate chip cookie. I'll still remember it. And in the middle of this cookie, we were talking about how we want to write one of our next books on decision making. And he just eats this beautiful cookie, and he looks at us, and he says, decision making. Yeah, I think decision making is important, but you know what I actually think is more important? Is decision management. It's like, cool, so there goes that book idea. But it's true, because so many times we're trying to make the perfect decision instead of manage the decision that we've already made. We can oftentimes pivot in the middle of a decision much faster. So I want to challenge you, how would your life look if you were unreasonably certain? What could that look like for you? From the outside looking in, how would your life look different? What would your days look like? What would your morning routines look like? What would your reflections at the end of the day? What would your journal include if you had unreasonable certainty? The second thing that you must do to really live out a life of conviction is you must align with what is right. And so that means you must be aligned with your purpose. You see, purpose is the best of what you have to help other people. Purpose is the best of what you have to help other people. It's not the role you tend to play. It's not your why. It's not anything. It really is the best of what you have to help and serve others. And the power of specificity is what is going to break you into new areas of clarity in your life and in your work. I meet people all the time who are like, I know my purpose. I'm like, what is it? They're like, to help people. And those of us in business know that the riches are in the niches, and that specificity is the power over all. Yes, of course, your purpose is to help people, but who, with what, when, and how? Those are the questions I want to help answer for you. This is what we call purpose in one picture. Purpose is what you give to others, and fulfillment is the result of helping others with your purpose. I'm going to lead you through an exercise where you're going to identify what elements of fulfillment you can start to experience on demand. People think I'm crazy sometimes, where I'm like, I'm going to help you find your purpose in 4 questions, which I'm going to in a moment. Or I'm going to say, I'm going to help you experience fulfillment on demand. They're like, she crazy. I'm like, watch me. So we're going to do that here in a moment. So is this fun? Are we having a great time? Okay, awesome. We're going to do a quick activity, and I'm going to have you pick, we all love our tables? Do we have a bestie at the table? We're going to make one. Okay, pick a partner at the table, and I'm going to give you just a few minutes, and I'm going to have you ask this question. What is your most fulfilling day at work? It could have been last week. It could be 10 years ago, but what is your most fulfilling day at work? I want you to share with your partner, and I want you to get specific. I want you to share with them, what problem were you solving? Who were you helping? And how were you recognized for or thanked for what it is that you did? So pick a buddy, share with them that, and then we'll come back together. Awesome, okay. Now I would like to get one volunteer. Can I get one volunteer to share their most fulfilled day and then answer the other 3 questions I have for you? That'd be great. Everybody all at once. This is overwhelming right now. Who here is a volunteer? There we go. Awesome. Thank you.
You're ready for cheers.
Oh my goodness. Oh, here, where do I go? Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so I want you to first ask, what is your most fulfilled day at work? So what was it?
Okay, so So it was when I was directing a series that I was also the lead actress in, and being able to, heart is going so fast, being able to bring people together toward a common vision and a common goal, and having them all be seen, heard, and valued on set, and that they're all contributing to this incredible honor that we get to do, to tell stories that have impact on people, that allow them to feel their feelings and allow them to understand themselves and to open up perspectives and create empathy in the world is like the highest honor ever. Mm-hmm. And being able to lead, like what an honor to lead those people in that way. And then I also get to step into that environment as an actor myself, and then be supported by those people that I created that environment for. Is like, there's nothing better than that.
I love it. It's so good. Give her a hand. Amazing. Okay, so now I'm going to ask her the next 3 questions that will quickly help us find some elements of her core purpose. So what have you overcome that you feel that you can help other people overcome?
So growing up, my father's from Bosnia, and the Bosnian War broke out in the 90s, and I was coming of age. And, my dad was my best friend. We were 2 peas in a pod. We had the same sense of humor. And when the war happened, I psychologically lost him. He was just another planet. I would come home from school and be like, guess what happened at school today? And he'd be like, I'm watching, right? And glued to CNN and just watching his childhood blow up on screen, and his friends and this and people he knew, and he's just glued to it. And it was such a weird phenomenon experience, because I felt so much for him to be going through that. I couldn't even imagine. And I was 10, right? I was 10. And at the same time, I missed my dad. I missed him. He wasn't there. It was like we just lost him. And then I felt guilty for that because he was going through that and his family was going through that, which is my family too. His whole side of the family was there. Yeah. And we escaped them as war refugees. But, there's a whole lot of guilt around that for me, of being able to say it's okay for me to have wanted my dad at that time, even though that was such a tragic time. But I think I got a couple of superpowers that came out of that.
You did.
I think the most important one is having people feel seen, heard, and valued. Yeah. And he wasn't able to give me that for a while. And I too did the whole perfectionist achievement thing.
Yes.
Hi, number 3.
Yes, that's right. I'm taking over the world over here.
And then the other one was when the war refugees, my cousins, my uncles, aunts, they all came over and lived with us for a few years while they got settled in Paramus, New Jersey. And went to school with me, and they didn't speak any English, and me trying to connect with someone who's been through such horror and seen it and felt it, and trying to connect with them through a language that we both don't understand.
Yeah.
And so that gave me the superpower of connecting through energy.
Yeah.
Which is my life's work now.
Yes. So what would you say is the skill set that you're most proud of honing throughout your life or career?
I mean, it's those two things. The ability to make people feel seen, heard, and valued is like an honor to do that.
Yes.
And the way in which I do it is through energy.
Yes, that's amazing. So can I repeat back to you what I believe your purpose is?
Yeah.
Because so much of what you just shared, do you guys see the through line of what is such a beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing this story. It's absolutely incredible because your most fulfilled day, all of those elements were there because you were able to lead others and create a safe space for energy and encouragement, that you were able to be for them what you wish that other people were there for you. You also too got to be seen yourself because you weren't just the director, leader, person putting it together, but you still need to be seen.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. So oftentimes as leaders, we think I need to become the leader so that way I can stay in the background, but you need to be seen. And it's a beautiful redemption story because you know how important it is to be seen because your dad didn't see you. And you now get to see the light and the energy, the beauty and the potential in every single person. And being able to connect through energy, you create stories. Everywhere you go, I can just see that for you, is that you're just a storyteller. And to create and empower and give them permission because you didn't feel like you had permission.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Give her a hand, guys. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Do you guys see how impactful getting clarity on just your most fulfilled day could be for you? To be able to notice that there were elements at work. It could just be another Tuesday for you. You felt like maybe it was just another day at the office, but there was a reason that that day stood out to you. It was the problem that you were solving. It was community that you were creating. It was seeing the hurt and the pain and preventing it. Preventing hurt and pain for others as well is such a huge superpower that you have because you know how hard it is to be alone. And you do that for others. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you. Now, whether you are in a season of transition or not, you have two questions that you can ask yourself. If you're looking for what's next, you want to ask the second question. If you're looking for how do I find more purpose in my everyday life, you can ask, how can I give my best in this current situation? This is what I love to ask employees when they're being a little persnickety. When they come to me and they say, hey, I'm not getting the promotion that I thought I was going to be getting, or my expectations were a little off, or can I get equity in the company? I'm like, stop watching Shark Tank. Okay, just stop it. Okay, that's not how this works. How can I give my best in this current situation? It's an empowering moment that you can give them to then give them clarity. The second question is the decision-focused question. Will this opportunity allow me to give the best of what I have? If you're considering what's next, should I start this company? Should I go into partnership with this person? Should I invest in this opportunity? Is it a platform for me to be able to give my best? Will I be able to connect energetically and be able to heal the hurt of other people? Will I be able to be present in the instance of pain? Will I be able to be for others what I wish that they were for me? Now, each of you at your table, we have these little QR codes here, and this is the purpose factor assessment. So we're giving you guys $20 off to take this purpose factor assessment. I encourage you to take it. Also to give it to your kids, to your friends. The purpose factor assessment is something that we created. It took us about 10 years to develop. It's the only purpose discovery system that's truly scalable. It takes about 20 minutes to find your purpose, and you get a 49-page report at the end. It's a system that's designed for 10th grade and up. So what I absolutely love is when people say, I took it and then I had my kids take it and I had my cousins take it, and it changes the conversation. One of our core purpose statements is that we want to change the conversation around the dinner table and the conference table because we believe powerful things happen. By the end of this year, we'll be translating all of our information into Spanish, and next year we're creating a version for kids, partnering with education systems. Can you imagine your kid coming home from school and you ask, what did you do today at school? And they said, I found my purpose. That's what we're working on here. When people find their purpose, they'll text us and they'll say powerful things like Josiah said, I was on a cliff in a really bad way. If I didn't find my purpose, I don't know what would have happened. We've had some people say, oh my gosh, reading this report, it's like giving words to my emotions. We had one executive at the John Maxwell organization. He said, what is this, witchcraft? He's like, how do you know this about me? Empowering you to be able to articulate what is most aligned with your purpose so that you can, in whatever season, walk into it with clarity and confidence. The third thing that you must have for conviction is it must be worth it. It's got to be worth it. Conviction really comes when there's clarity and pain. You cannot have one or the other. If you just have clarity, you have direction, but no motivation. If you just have pain, you have motivation, but no direction. Both must exist at the same time. I want to show you how to create a clarity moment for you right now. Is that okay? I'm going to give you some homework for you to do. So everyone take out your notebooks. I know you guys have been so good about taking notes. And this is something that I want you guys to do maybe on the plane tomorrow or when you get back. And I want you to draw 3 columns. The first column, I want you to write the word clarity at the top. Clarity. The next column, I want you to write pain. The third, I want you to write must. Here's how you're going to use this when you go back to your life, to your business, to your family. In the clarity column, you're going to write the things that you know that you should be doing. It could be your dreams. It could be the things that you know that you should do in 6 months or 1 year or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. It could be the thing that you know when you think back at the end of your life, you're like, this is what I must do. What is that clarity? We all have clear visions of our future. We have goals that we want to do. What is the thing that if you think about your future self saying, this is my most fulfilled day in the future. We just talked about what your most fulfilled day was in the past. What is your most fulfilled day in the future? Who are you serving? What are you doing? How are you being recognized? That goes in the clarity column. And the next column is the pain. It is the pain of what happens if you don't do that. There's incredible science that shows that motivation really does come from the avoidance of pain, not just the pursuit of pleasure. And I get it. I love a good vision board. I love a good dream casting. I love a good retreat where I'm like, yes, this is what my life could look like. But you know what will motivate you more than anything else? The doubt that that might not happen. It's a very real possibility that the things that each of us want to do, the book we want to write, the company we want to start, the charity that we want to launch might not happen. And when we bring clarity and pain, the thing we know we must do with the fact that it won't happen unless, conviction is born. The I must comes from the very real possibility that it might not happen. And the only reason it won't is when we let fear override conviction. There's the difference between pain you choose and pain you don't. There's an interesting study done a few years ago. No, I'm not selling laser subscriptions. This isn't like a med spa launch or anything like this. There was a study done a few years ago where they looked at the impact of pain and choice. They had two groups of people. One group of people could control the level and severity of a laser being put on their hand. The other, it was administered by a student who just would intermittently put the laser on their hand. The individuals who could choose the severity and the time duration of the laser being on their hands, the pain increased significantly higher versus those where pain was distributed by somebody else. What does this mean for us? When we choose the pain, we can endure it a lot harder and a lot longer. All of us choose pain. We choose to get up in the morning. We choose to eat the food we know we're supposed to eat. We choose the hard conversations. The longer we live, the more that we realize through wisdom that pain is a necessary component to growth. Success demands sacrifice. It's a law as immutable as gravity. You do not get to the top of the mountain without pushing past barriers that you did not think were possible. But the sacrifice I'm talking to you about right now is not the sacrifice that you're thinking. I'm not asking you to sacrifice any more time away from your family. I'm not asking you to sacrifice your bodies. I'm not asking you to sacrifice the thing that you know that you're supposed to be doing. I'm asking you to sacrifice fear. I'm asking you to put it to the side saying, hey, you know what? You're actually not giving me any strength. I'm asking you to sacrifice the coping mechanism that maybe has made you successful up until this point. I'm asking you to sacrifice. Now, there are three different types of conviction killers. When conviction is created, it is not guaranteed. Good news and bad news, my friend. It's something that you got to do every day. There are three conviction killers, and they all start with P. There's people-pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination. We tend to have one more than the other. People-pleasing is what we do in front of people. Perfectionism is what we do before we get in front of people. And procrastination is just avoiding getting in front of people altogether. Which of those three tends to be the component that you fall into? We all know it. You probably know it right now. You tend to fall in one of these three. When I think of conviction, I think about conviction that you can actually create on your own. This is Don Valencia. In the 1980s, he was a chemical engineer and he was absolutely loved coffee. He was also an avid hiker. And so he would go back to his lab and tinker with some things, and he created this instant coffee. And he would use it when he went hiking. He gave it to his friends and his family, and they loved it so much. They're like, Don, you should really do something with this. So his wife talked him into it. They went up to Starbucks headquarters, and he dropped it off at headquarters with the baristas there. I don't know who would pitch baristas, but that's what he did. He said, try it, believe me, and he walked away. As the story goes, his son Bo says it, but the baristas ran after him and said, this is absolutely amazing. We have to introduce you to Howard. The meeting happened. Don actually joined Starbucks and became part of their R&D department. Years and years went by. He kept working and tweaking on this tiny little thing that he wanted instant coffee. He's like, I know this is going to be great. His conviction was high, but the opportunity wasn't there yet. So he tried and he created something at Mazagran. Has anyone heard of this? Probably not. It's like Sprite and coffee had a baby. He created it where it's like sparkling coffee. Obviously, it didn't work out very well. It flopped on the market. But that failure turned into his greatest strength. He was able to find a way to create something that was shelf stable and had incredibly pure taste of coffee. And that is what launched the canned Frappuccinos that many of us stop off at while I live in Texas. So Buc-ee's all the way. Got to get a Frap at Buc-ee's, okay? But what's so amazing is, years after years, he kept trying to make this thing work and it never worked. Eventually, Don retired. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Howard came down and visited him, thanked him for his work and said, don't worry, we're going to have your coffee come to life. At the time, coffee, the instant coffee was called Stardust and Space Needle. It's like basically sounds like street drugs. Okay, I'm really glad they didn't go with those names. He said, don't worry, Stardust is going to come to the market. Don eventually passed away. 2 years later, we have Via. When Howard had the marketing team together, he said, yes, Via is a nod to going everywhere, but it has to have a nod to Don. Via named after Don Valencia. Sometimes conviction is something that chooses you. Rosa Parks, December 1st, 1955, she wasn't planning on having that be her conviction moment. It was a normal day. She was getting on the bus from work. She had her groceries with her. And when the bus stop said, the bus driver said, "I need you to move," she said no. It was that moment of conviction where she rallied an entire movement around her because they said, if she can, so can we. When she was arrested, she created a movement of people who were saying, what could happen if we just said no? What could that be for you? See, each of us have moments where we are challenged to step up. Moments where we want to do something that's uncomfortable. Maybe that moment is someone coming to you and saying, hey, can you write that book? And you're scared as hell, but you say yes. Maybe that moment is when you're deciding to start a relationship or end a relationship. Maybe that moment for you is deciding that you're going to double down on an idea like Don did that took him decades and actually might not happen in your lifetime. If your dream doesn't scare you, is it even worth pursuing? You might have a moment in front of you. That moment then turns into momentum. It builds on each other. And that momentum, my friends, is what I believe will create a movement. Conviction in your heart creates the confidence to start. If you feel like you're lacking the confidence, you're like, I know I can do it, but it means that you need to rev that conviction engine. You need to talk about what that conviction moment needs to be. You need to revisit the notes that you took here today to create the confidence to start. The people who have gone through our programs and have followed these systems, and they've left their jobs and they've started incredible consulting companies. They've been awarded and recognized on multiple social media platforms and major media publications. They've done incredible things, but there's always an option. Imagine if this was it. This was it. I didn't share with you anything else. You said that was so great. You left this conference, you moved on with your life, and nothing changed. But imagine if you had a moment where you realized that this was your time to change. If this was the moment that you realized, I do have conviction and I'm so tired of letting fear be the thing that's stopping me. Imagine if this was the moment that you said, I am worth fighting for. I'm worth pushing for. I'm worth changing for. Because what I have found is the number one reason why people don't change, the reason that they don't change is because they don't believe that they are worth it. Something out there will not be worth it unless we believe that we are worth it. And I am here to tell you that each and every single one of you, you are worth it. You're worth the sacrifice. You're worth the push. You're worth being uncomfortable for. You're worth being too much for other people. You're worth offending people for. You are worth pursuing your purpose for. My name is Gab Bosche. Thank you for